What if this year, instead of focusing on what's missing, you celebrated your gains while closing the gaps? Today, I'll show you how to make progress without pressure, because every step forward matters. And I see that quite a bit, actually, in the yoga class that I'm attending. The teacher puts on these really intense recommendations onto the class, and some people just go for it. I mean, it's like a backwards twist. You twist at the torso, and then you twist your head and your other arm, and I'm thinking, oh, friend, that looks like you might need to go see an osteopath after you get done with that. So I see that all the time because I think they're looking at their gap, what they're not in relationship to their peers, what they're not, maybe compared to when they had a really good yoga class and they were really kind of succeeding and nailing it. So I see that there, and then we come into this new year and new mindset, and a lot of times it's still really punitive in how we're thinking. And just like medicine can be about love and not fear, so can looking forward. It can be about love. Because sometimes we have to look back first a little bit to evaluate how we're looking forward. And we've definitely been doing that here, the Michigan Center for Holistic Medicine. I've been doing that in looking at 2024 and as we go into 2025. I also like the analogy of like play tennis with someone that's better than you in tennis, because if someone's better than you, you're going to be striving. When that backfires, you look at what you're not, right? So if you look at the gain of playing with someone or, being around people who can challenge you, then that's really impressive. But sometimes we just look around and we see what we're not. And that's really unfortunate because other people are doing exactly the same thing. And so I think we can all move each other forward by looking more at what we're gaining and looking back at what we've gained.
Today's episode is sponsored by Vitality Health RX Supplements. Whether you're an athlete, a busy professional, or just someone looking to prioritize health, Vitality Health RX has what you need. With premium ingredients and rigorous quality control, their supplements support your body's natural functions. Visit shopvrx.com and use code FEELGREAT15 for 15% off your first order. Thanks to Vitality Health RX for sponsoring this episode. Now let's dive in.
So this is Feel Better, Feel Great podcast. Welcome. It's episode 146, New Year, New Mindset, and your 2025 focus on health and vitality. I'm your host, Dr. Andrea McSwain, and as we step into the new year, I want to take this moment to focus on the opportunities ahead and how we frame them, which really matters. And so I know a lot of people are, talking about New Year's resolutions. They're talking about that. And I was actually in a yoga class the other day, and I thought it was really funny because the teacher was impressed with the number of people that were in the class. I mean, it was packed. And then at the end of the class, he said something like, well, I hope you all keep it up. I thought, was that upbeat and inspirational? Because they know that by February, right, there's all these drops. But I really feel like a lot of times people set up really ambitious goals, and that gets very important, actually. But what's also really important is recognizing that those are the goals have to have those little objectives that you meet every day. And that's a little more about being honest, having accountability, and staying focused. So I hope you see in this episode that it's going to be upbeat and inspirational, and it is about your health, but your health is not just your body, right? It's not just your supplement list or your medications that you're on or getting to your, body work treatments, like, blah, blah, blah. It is a lot about how you think of it, right? So kind of setting those places up for success. And that's really remarkable. So 2025 gives us this blank slate, right? In fact, every day you could argue gives us a blank slate. And I was listening to someone the other day, and they said, I struggle in the afternoon with my self-care routine, so I put more of those things in the morning because I'm good at it in the morning. And I think, okay, that's really important if you're knowing yourself well enough to say, hey, your success matters when you time things. And so if we look at 2025 as a new year, then we look at January as a new month, and we look at the morning as a new day. And that sometimes can be nice, really nice. And then the other thing too is thinking, okay, is this like a day-long goal, like a week-long goal, like with our 7-day detox? You know, there's 52 weeks of the year. Like, can I do this for 7 days? The answer is yes. Then looking at month goals, like Whole30. Can I eat, completely whole foods? So giving up pasta. You can, maybe you have quinoa or something like that, but you have either a small grain or, like a not very processed grain, or you just let go of grains altogether. Or maybe you do a whole month without grains. Maybe you do a month without meat. So how you're going to break up your month, maybe you just do a day. Those kind of ideas, are really about, again, the gains and also perspective, and also, okay, setting up something that can be ambitious without like overwhelming yourself, right? So I did see that someone ran, a 55-year-old woman, oh my gosh, in Europe, I'll put it like that. She ran a marathon every day last year in 2024. And what's interesting is she included the leap year. I was like, oh my gosh. So she actually did 306. She included the leap day. She included February 29th because 2024 had a leap year day, February 29th. So she included that. Anyway, I thought, okay. But she probably didn't start running marathons on January 1st, 2024. She probably was fairly proficient at that point, and then she challenged herself for the next gain. Anyway, kind of talking a lot before we really get started into the episode. But if you're new to me, please like, subscribe, and click the bell for this channel. We're really looking at growing ways to share this information to people and looking at health from a positive way and also a progressive way. So please remember that the information shared in this podcast is for education purposes only. Please seek the medical advice of your physician with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or health objective. All right, but let's talk about some health objectives. And then you can talk with your provider, and you can also talk with other people about accountability. So first of all, let's talk a moment about accountability. Because accountability is one of the hardest things, right? It's kind of showing like your mistakes, if you will, or where you fall down to someone else. And I think that's really important. Sometimes I think people don't have to have full disclosure about their errors. You can just kind of use a little bit less, like completely honest. So if you're struggling to eat, that you're eating something or you're snacking on something, let's say ice cream. Let's say you have a substantial addiction to ice cream. 1, because it's full of sugar. 2, because it's designed to taste really good. 3, because it never comes actually in the portion size that it's supposed to. It always comes in a much larger portion size. But you don't really want to get a bowl out, right? Because then some part of it will go to waste. So you just eat directly from the container. So then you realize this is a problem. All right, so if you were doing like complete disclosure to whomever your accountability buddy is, or maybe your life partner or your children, those are fun when you have accountability with your kids when they're older. And even when they're younger, but when they're younger, it's a little hard for them because they get really like black and white about it. But sometimes that's nice. So anyway, if you start getting some accountability and you say, you know what, I'm going to make sure that I don't buy ice cream. So I'm going to make sure ice cream does not get into the grocery cart. That's a little bit nicer to yourself than saying like, I eat way too much ice cream, blah, 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 blah. So you're actually creating a limit which is I don't buy ice cream, I don't keep it in the house to your benefit, right? So then even if you crave it, it's not there, you'd have to go get it. And is a little different than telling everyone that you're addicted to ice cream, where you're fully committed to ice cream. And when you do that, I think it helps you frame, okay, if I don't have it in the cart, that's actually a positive action instead of thinking I'm not going to eat it or I shouldn't eat ice cream or things like that. So it just reframes that mindset And you think about health benefits too. Like, okay, if I don't have ice cream, but sometimes we eat ice cream because it makes us happy. There's a comforting aspect. Any kind of dairy product really has a morphine like component, so it just can make you have more joy in life. And a lot of times people struggle with joy. So that's another layer, right? So if you are struggling with ice cream, maybe it's because it's really yummy, but also maybe because it brings you joy. And if it's bringing you joy, and if the sugar maybe is bringing you energy, then maybe that's really the health first mindset to appreciating the reasons why having ice cream out of your home and your life is actually better for you. But actually, then what do you need to do to support you having energy and to support you having joy? Okay, so it looks a little bit deeper in a way of what you actually need from something and how you can set limits for getting things from, like ice cream, for example, that you don't need, but you do need joy and you do need energy. So then how do you get those things? And that's just an important awareness to recognizing that. So that we get into this idea that it's more about like appreciating what we do want in life and what makes us have healing, healthy lives, how to focus on those. And then it's less about being punitive or saying, I eat too much ice cream, or that's the reason why my pants don't fit, and blah, 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 blah. All those, should haves and would haves and, things like that. So those kind of ideas shift. Sorry, my dog I think he's looking for his treat or he hid it from himself. So he's all over the place right now. So a little moment of distraction there and a smile, which feels good. So again, how can you feel that you're really into gaining energy and gaining joy and getting into a good habit of actually fulfilling what makes your heart feel better? A lot of times that's the way to put the mindset in. A lot of people talk about mindset is like small, consistent actions. And I believe that. But the underpinnings are also really important to explore. And that's the part of like feeling better and feeling great is definitely about the gain, right? Helping you feel better, helping you feel great. And realizing that sometimes there's just different goals that we have in life that anyone has that helps them feel better. And there's other goals that help them feel great. And so wherever you are in that journey, and can start evaluating that. In fact, maybe even using that mantra, what's making me feel better? What's making me feel great? And then recognize progress, the gain. Okay. And obviously we talk about progress and not perfection. I've never been a perfectionist, actually. So I don't quite understand it, but the idea of perfection to me is more about control, which leads to failure. And it's more of a limiting perspective. So perfection is a lot about setting limits. It's different than focus because perfection lends itself to one, things not getting done. And two, still a lot of recognizing comparisons between yourself and others. And there's really not a lot of progress that happens with that. And I see that in any number of big life goals that people have, right? Like, like graduating from high school, graduating from college. I don't even know how you obtain perfection graduating from med school. That is definitely a progress one, right? And then serving as a physician. I don't know what perfection looks like. I know what progress looks like, right? And I know that the body is dynamic and I know that health is dynamic. So if you're making progress, right, it's fantastic. If you're making perfection with your body, you're probably that person in the yoga class who's doing all these bends and twists, and at the same time, they're not listening to their body potentially. They're not listening to their body saying, that really hurts. Don't do that backwards twist and go into a reverse warrior two and transition into blah, blah, because it's hurting you. Like those are more about seeking perfection, is that external drive. So that's not very conducive to progress, actually, because then you have to stop. And that's the other thing that I see a lot of times is people, if they're pushing too hard they're going from a gap and they're not really going from a gain, then they're going to lead to injury, and then they're going to take a lot of time off to recover. A lot of time to recover. There's your natural recovery, and then there's a lot about like having injury that makes you stop. So it's that self-compassion and that moving forward idea is really fundamental. I see that in my practice with my patients all the time. If their insulin, let's say, is insulin level is 20, what's that day in and day out that makes them feel better? Well, they start sleeping. They recognize when their blood sugar is low that might lend itself to spikes. They might realize that is because they might be having some anxiety over some issues. They might be very carb heavy and they might need more protein. They might need to have a few times where they just break away in the day and think about what their own needs are. That's really important. So that one's really about like mindset and health first mindset. And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, right? Princess Bride quote, among many other. So then I like to look at, okay, what's the vision? So this year I dedicated New Year's Eve to drafting my vision board. I've done those in the past. Visioning is fantastic. We talk about how some people are visionaries or they have this amazing vision, but that can be you for your own life if you actually have vision. And vision is a skill to develop. And I think that's really, really important because so one of my recognitions, and it might not sound like a profound vision, is I'm so used to working. I'm so used to working that I have my list of work, and then I have my list of other work that I have to find time to fill in or to get done, rather, when I have other work. So I'm so used to doing this double, triple duty dynamic, and that kind of leaves me in a little bit of like a void or a hole or a gap. And so it's like, oh yeah, I got this done, but I didn't get this whole long list. Well, how was I supposed to get that done? I actually have no time to get that done. So then what happens? Well, then I don't exercise, or I don't make a decent meal, or I don't pet my dog, right? Stuff like that. I mean, I always pet my dog, but you get the point. So it's like, okay, if you set a vision and it actually then includes your goals, right? So I want to take an art class. I love to paint. I love art. I love pottery wheels, watercolor. I mean, you name it. I just can't get enough of it, truly. And yet I hardly get any of it in because I haven't set that time to make sure I get an opportunity to have an art class. And, now I'm 47, so I better do that. And I always put it in my academics as best I could, at least through some facet through college, even after college, before med school, but not a lot of art classes in med school. And then I just dropped out of it, and it's been a long time since I've done that. And I think, actually, I don't mean to quote too many movies, but like that's in The Notebook, right? She's like, oh, I don't paint anymore. And it was for her like this whole place of who she envisioned herself to be or not be. Who is she going to be? Was she someone that had art, that art was a priority, or someone that it wasn't a priority? And what was that as it related to her identity? And so what does it relate to your identity, and making sure you actually put in those things? And in the past, I've thought about like those big rocks, those medium-sized rocks, and the sand kind of fills your time container. But I will tell you, I feel like the sand fills up most of the container, and then it's the little rocks, and then it's the bigger rocks, and then you have the boulders. So, that's just the insidiousness that happens when the time keeps ticking forward. So take the time. Take it now, like even if it's an hour or something, and just write down 3 goals. And maybe these goals are very simple, but they help you kind of frame then what you're thinking. So what's your physical goal? Okay, are you going to move daily? And what does that mean? I would say if you have a yoga mat, good, unroll it, put it on the ground. Hopefully just keep it on the ground somewhere so you don't have to think about that part when you go to your yoga mat. Then you get on hands and knees and you lift your arm, you put it down, you lift your leg. I've got some Dr. McSwain YouTube channels, or Instagram has that. Or are you going to set something a little bit stronger and set like a strength training goal, or you're going to move X number of times? I'm committing to yoga 2 to 3 times a week. It's hot yoga. It's an hour. It's very good. And then on the other days, I do some other things, whether I do a face mask or even a body mask, which is super cool. So that's my physical goal. Okay, so what's your physical goal? Just say it out loud. Write it in one of the comments, right? Physical goal. Again, you don't have to be super detailed, but just like, I'm going to move daily. I'm going to walk my dog every day for 15 minutes or a certain place and back. There is a very nice man named Jeff Walker. And Jeff Walker says when he gets to a certain tree, that's when he starts running. That's the running tree. And I think that if that's suits you, it's consistency, it's a determined point, and you know what to do. And your body just takes over. Okay, nutrition goal. So one thing is, one, recognizing maybe whole foods, and then 2, adding whole foods. So some people can do the whole 30, but that might be a lot for you, dedicating your entire 30 days to whole foods. Also, if you don't actually know what a whole food is and you're so used to eating processed foods, you might end up actually just eating processed foods and say you're eating whole foods and then not getting some other goals that you're hoping for. And the other one is hydration. And not just going to the tap and filling your glass, because water has to be, processed, for lack of a better word. Water has to make sure you have the right minerals, that you don't have the wrong metals. So there's a filtration process that's really important with water. That we heat it and we sanitize it a lot, but we have to make sure we have to look at the pH maybe. And so what I like to do every week is have a gallon of high pH water. And that's my hydration goal. I mean, I have it in a day or a day and a half, and then I have my other filtered water for the other day, which has an elevated pH over 7.4, but this is a much higher pH, like a 8.8 or 9, or sometimes 10, depending on which one I pick up. And then, of course, sleep to heal. Mine that I have to work on is my wake up. What do I do in those moments when I'm waking up that I can frame the way I'm thinking? A lot of times, just whatever will infiltrate my brain, whether it's my daughter or my dog, or check this or look at that or get going, what's going to happen today. But it needs to be, for me, a little bit more clarity about the mindset and bringing that joy into my life at the start of the day. I'm working on that one. I think Mind Valley, which I subscribe to, has some really important mindfulness and day starting routines. So I'm looking into that. Of course, when you have a goal, you have to check in if you're gaining on that goal. And then if not, have some accountability and talk to the people that love you, or a person that loves you and understands this, and then revisit those goals. Those are quite a few objectives and conversations, and we're going to get into some other stuff throughout the year, because I think it really matters to have this conversation right now, because it's the new year. But I also want to think about this throughout the year. So there's some other stuff I'm going to have for you. First of all, there'll be a guide for this to check out. Please leave a comment of what your goal is. Realize that one of the things could be just, how do you reset your background? And that's kind of the final message I'm going to say is, your brain is always in a loop. And what is that loop for you? That's a lot of times people get into a mantra, which is important. A lot of times people only say a mantra at a certain time of the day or the month, or if they attend church in the week. But really, how do you reset that loop in the back? So that is really about recognizing, what are you telling yourself all the time? And then recognizing, what do you want to tell yourself all the time? And just to kind of summarize that kind of in a spectrum, one is frustration and resentment, which I would say remove those words from your life. If you want to talk about something that has a negativity around it, which is totally fine, totally normal, use words like problem or challenge because they have solutions. And then start building towards acceptance and start building towards appreciation, even appreciation in the hardest times. Quite a mindset. And I welcome your comments. If there's ways we can help you, let us know. Remember that this is yours, this life is yours, and health is such a significant part of your journey. So thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe, share this episode with someone who hopefully needs a little inspiration, and also someone who you might know has a lot of resolution work, but maybe they've been coming from a place of gap, and you might want to share this to change kind of the way they frame this into a place of gain. Here's to a year, right, with health, happiness, and growth. Thank you very much.